The real reason. You replay conversations for hours. You leave a conversation, and it follows you home. Not physically, but in your head. You replay what you said, what they said, how you sounded, and even hours later, you're still editing something that already happened. So why can't your mind let it go? 2. Problem deep dive. It usually starts quietly. A small moment. Maybe you said something slightly off, or maybe nothing went wrong at all. But your brain decides to revisit it. At first, it feels useful, like you're just thinking it through, but then it loops. You replay the tone of your voice, their facial expression, that one sentence you wish you phrased differently. You imagine better versions, smoother responses, smarter replies, and somehow, each replay makes it feel more important than it actually was. This isn't just reflection, it's rehearsal for a past that's already closed. And the strange part is, you know it's not helping. But stopping feels incomplete. Like if you don't figure it out, something about you remains unresolved. Over time, this pattern shapes your behavior. You become more careful in conversations, more filtered, more aware of how you might sound, and slowly, without noticing, you stop speaking freely. Not because you don't have thoughts, but because you don't want to relive them later. So the question isn't just, why do I overthink conversations? It's deeper than that. What is your brain trying to fix in something that's already over? 3. Reframe. It doesn't feel like it, but this habit has a purpose. Your brain is not trying to torture you. It's trying to protect your identity. Because in social situations, your brain is constantly asking one question. How was I seen? Not just what happened, but what it meant about you. Were you respected? Awkward? Interesting? Forgettable? And when the answer feels unclear, your brain keeps searching. So the replay isn't about the conversation itself. It's about resolving uncertainty. You're not reviewing the moment. You're trying to stabilize how you exist in other people's minds. And until that feels certain, your brain doesn't close the loop. But that creates a deeper problem, because the answer you're looking for isn't actually available. 4. Psychological mechanism. This pattern is rooted in something called social evaluation processing. Your brain treats social interactions as high-stakes environments, because historically, they were. Belonging meant survival. Rejection meant risk, so your brain evolved to monitor social feedback closely. After an interaction, the default mode network activates. The system involved in self-reflection and mental simulation. It starts reconstructing the event. But here's the key part. It doesn't replay the conversation to remember it. It replays it to interpret it. And because social meaning is ambiguous, your brain fills in gaps. It guesses what the other person thought. It predicts how you were perceived. This involves the medial prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for thinking about yourself from another person's perspective. Here's the mental model. It's like your brain is trying to write a review about you from someone else's point of view, but it doesn't have the actual data. So it keeps rewriting. Different tone, different outcome, different interpretation. That's why the loop doesn't end, because it's not solving a problem with a clear answer. It's trying to solve ambiguity with imagination. And imagination doesn't have a stopping point. So the real question becomes, how do you stop a loop that your brain thinks is protecting you? 5. Practical framework. You don't stop this by forcing your mind to be quiet. You shift how your brain processes the uncertainty. 1. Separate facts from interpretations. After a conversation, your brain mixes two things: what actually happened and what you think it meant. What to do? Write down the raw facts, just observable details, no assumptions. Why it works. This engages analytical processing and reduces emotional distortion from the amygdala. It grounds your brain in reality instead of imagined evaluation. Real-life example. Instead of, they thought I sounded stupid, you write, I paused twice and they nodded. The emotional weight drops immediately. 2. Limit the number of replays your brain believes repetition equals resolution, but in this case, it increases distortion. What to do? Set a boundary. Allow yourself to replay it once or twice, intentionally. Then stop. Why it works. Repeated recall strengthens neural pathways, making the memory more emotionally intense. Limiting replays prevents reinforcement. Real-life example. You notice yourself looping again at night. Instead of continuing, you interrupt it with a different activity, like walking or listening to something neutral. 3. Replace mind reading with probability thinking. Your brain assumes it can figure out what others thought. It can't. What to do? Shift from certainty to probability. Instead of one fixed conclusion, list multiple possible interpretations. Why it works. This reduces cognitive bias and weakens the brain's need for a single answer. Ambiguity becomes tolerable. Real-life example. Instead of, they definitely judged me, you consider, maybe they didn't notice. Maybe they were distracted. Maybe it didn't matter. The loop loosens. 4. Redirect from self-image to connection. Your attention during conversations often stays on yourself. How you sound, how you appear, that's what feeds the replay later. What to do? In future interactions, focus more on the other person, their words, their emotions. Why it works. This reduces self-focused attention, which is strongly linked to rumination. It gives your brain less material to analyze later. Real-life example. Instead of thinking, how am I coming across? You think, what are they actually trying to say? The conversation becomes lighter. 5. Accept the unfinished feeling. This is the hardest part. Your brain wants closure, but social interactions rarely provide it. What to do? Allow the feeling of incompleteness without trying to resolve it. Why it works. This reduces compulsive cognitive closure seeking, a known driver of rumination. You train your brain to tolerate uncertainty. Real-life example. You end a conversation and feel unsure. Instead of analyzing it, you let the feeling exist, without answering it. Over time, the need to resolve it weakens. 6. Integration. All of this comes down to one simple idea. You're not replaying the conversation. You're replaying your identity inside it. Your brain is trying to answer, what did this say about me? But the answer keeps shifting because it's based on imagination, not reality. So the loop continues until you change the question. Instead of asking, how was I perceived? You begin to ask, what actually happened and what am I adding to it? That shift doesn't stop the mind instantly, but it changes its direction. From chasing certainty to recognizing uncertainty, and in that space, the loop starts to loosen. 7. Quiet, empowering, close. Not every moment needs to be understood. Not every interaction needs to be decoded. Some things can just end, even if they feel unfinished. Because the more you try to perfect the past, the more you stay inside it. And maybe that's why your mind keeps replaying. Not because something is wrong, but because it hasn't learned that it's allowed to move on. And slowly, when you stop trying to resolve every detail, you begin to notice something quieter. The present moment no longer competes with the past, and your mind finally has somewhere else to be.